Welcome guys, and thank you for tuning in. Today we are going to be installing a Brakemaster cylinder brace on the Z. We're going to review it, test it out, and let you know what I think. Okay, so the Brakemaster cylinder that we're going to be installing today is from Z1 Motorsports. For you guys that are familiar to the Z platform, I'm sure you know all about Z1 Motorsports. For guys that are new to the Z platform, and if you haven't heard of Z1 Motorsports, excellent company. They make a lot of in-house parts. They do put a lot of R&D into their products. Been always very happy with them. I'll put a link to their store in the description below. I guess I'll put a link to the part as well, and that way after we install it and see how we like it, if you're interested, you could also check it out. So this is their Brakemaster cylinder brace. This is one of their house products. I believe this is specifically, or was specifically designed by them, so doing their own R&D. So unpacking the box here, we've got our instructions that we're going to check out in a little bit. It's a box within a box, so that's kind of cool. Good packaging. We got our hardware up top, and here's the brace. So the brace is two-piece because, as you'll see when we install this is going to go through the false fire wall. So one piece will go on one side and the other piece on the other side. So the one piece is the base, which is this one actually, and then this is the I think it's called the arm. In the instructions. This will go on the other side, and the hardware. Now, as far as the hardware, this is going to depend a little bit based off of if you have a Z, a G, or what year model. These two bolts, which are going to be actually the bolts for that actually go right up against the Brakemaster cylinder. There's two different sizes. I believe these are the two of them. So you're gonna have to pick one of each depending on your particular model and year. And or there's also another one that for some of the later year Model Gs, the package will come with a different one. So this is what we're working with today. Pretty lightweight, first impression. Very nice cuts. Feels like a good solid product. Lightweight though. I will say my first impression, I was expecting that this was going to be a little bit heavier, but no real weight to it. Alright, so this is the brake compartment where we're going to be installing it. So obviously you're going to be removing your cover. And here is your Brakemaster cylinder, and then you have your clutch slave cylinder here right next to it. So this is a fairly common mod that a lot of people will do to basically add support to the braking system, kind of increase brake response, stiffen up the brake pedal, and basically make it so that it's a little bit of a different or a better driver feel. So the Brakemaster cylinder brace is basically going to push up against here at the Brakemaster cylinder, and then basically what this is going to do is make this solid so that as you're pushing on the pedal and there's force exerted, even though the firewall is reinforced, there still might be a little bit of flex, so you still might get a little bit of movement here, and then this piece is going to make it so that everything is going to be nice and solid and you won't be feeling it. So this particular design from Z1 Motorsports is basically going to replace this piece here, which is a bracket that does attach to the false firewall, which is this partition right over here. It's called a partition or a false firewall. It's going to have your clutch slave cylinder attached to it. It's going to utilize the two bolts of the strut tower for the front support, basically making this a stiff point that then on the back of it the other plate will attach, and then this will get tightened, press up against the Brakemaster cylinder, and that's how you will get your brake support. So real nice design, as it utilizes the two pieces, or will utilize the two piece, the one in the front with the one in the middle for all of the attachment points. Now if you do have an automatic transmission and you're putting this on automatic transmission, you basically won't have to worry about this. It's just going to be doing the attachment point so that you are pressing against the Brakemaster cylinder. As for what you will need for the install, I believe these are 12 millimeters that you're going to need here to remove the bolts from the strut tower, 10 mils for these, and then you're going to need a 19 millimeter. The 19 millimeter is going to be needed a socket, 19 millimeter socket, and a 19 millimeter wrench. The socket is going to be needed for the custom bolts that are actually going to attach, or custom nuts, I should say, that are going to be attached to the strut tower here with the base. And then the 19 millimeter wrench is going to be needed to tighten up against the Brakemaster cylinder here once you have the pieces in place to tighten and add the support. Install should be pretty simple. First thing we're going to do is detach this, take this out of the way, detach these, and put the base on. Once we put the base on, the base can get tightened right away. Tighten it the full amount. Everything else is going to then get attached without getting tightened first, just to match it all up, position it properly, and then we will attach it. Okay, so we have the base on nice and tight. Not too difficult to fit in here. It is a little bit of a tight fit, so you're going to have to play around with it a little bit until it goes in. The instructions from Z1 actually say to remove all of this plastic. I don't necessarily know why, because the plastic doesn't get in the way. The only thing that gets in the way a little bit is this one brake line right up top here. Now you can follow. So just have to lift on this a little bit to get it to drop in there nicely, and then once it drops in there, you're good to go. Just have to tighten it down with a 19 millimeter socket. Again, just be careful on this particular side because of the way it is with proximity with this AC line here. It wasn't tough though. So this is all nice and tight. Now we are going to position, pardon the motorcycles. Now we're going to position the arm side in here and basically connect everything and attach everything without tightening it, just to see position wise how everything is before we go ahead and tighten everything down. So just notice here on the two parts, actually the base and the arm, what Z1 did was actually really nice. I don't know if you could see it here on the camera, but the bolts that are going to be going through the false firework / the partition here, there's an oval cutout, so that's going to allow for some adjustment to mark everything up. And then also notice the nice thing they did here in the package of their bolts is they actually have all of the hardware, if it's focusing in here, the nut with the accompanying washer and lock nut is actually already in position, so that you can't mess it up or have to pay attention greatly to the instructions to match them up. So that's actually really, really cool and really smart, particularly for anybody who isn't greatly used to working on a car. With the way that Z1 designed this, I will give them props right away here. If you are new to working on your own car and are, just starting out working on your car and you're looking for something simple to do, this would be a excellent entry into just something simple that you can get used to working on an automobile. Obviously, if you're experienced working with cars, you're going to find that this whole install is actually quite a breeze. Should only take you 10 minutes, if that. Okay, install is complete. Everything is tight and finished. There's some sun in shade, so I'm not sure how well it'll be visible on the camera or how well it will focus. Took me more than the 10 minutes that I mentioned because I am weird with OCD. I tried numerous times to adjust this with the oval holes that I had so I can make the nut that presses up, the bolt rather, excuse me, that presses up against the Brakemaster cylinder to be nice and centered. Problem is, once you start tightening this to put pressure on the Brakemaster cylinder, because it is spinning, it puts a weird kind of torque rotational movement on the Brakemaster cylinder. So no matter how well you have it adjusted before starting to tighten it, as soon as you start to tighten it, it'll kind of go in a different direction. In either case, it is nice and tight. I will admit this is my very first vehicle ever, actually, that I'm going to be driving with a brace on the Brakemaster cylinder. So I was a little skeptical. I haven't driven the car yet, but this, I must say, feels really solid, especially compared to what it felt like as soon as you start tightening that and seeing the Brakemaster cylinder move and how much flexibility there is. Also, in true Roddy fashion, I did kind of probably over tighten this a bit. It probably didn't need to be tightened as much as I did, but I have the bad habit of tightening things a little bit too much sometimes. So we shall see if my skepticism on the test drive is going to be revealed or not. So now that we have everything installed, it is time to test drive it and review. So
let's go for a little ride.
Alright, let's see what we think. Alright guys, so this is going to be the review portion. As I left my driveway, the first time I applied the brakes, I will say I thought I was going to end up being a little disappointed. I didn't feel all that different of a response in the braking. As we got going and we did a little bit more spirited driving, particularly through some of those S-turns there, where I was not necessarily driving as I normally would, as I was carrying too much speed going into the turn, but I was doing that on purpose so I could brake hard and see how the response was. The response definitely felt a bit better than without the brace beforehand. When I say a bit better, it was noticeable. I don't know that it was an extreme noticeable response. I did read some reviews online for this particular brace and for other braces, and I did run across a lot of reviews that people would be saying, wow, what a huge difference. I can't believe how much of a difference that made. I don't know that I would necessarily agree with that. I didn't feel that huge of a response. Granted, I only drove the car just a little bit just now, just so I could obviously sit down and review this. But it was noticeable, so I will say I am excited to start driving the car more and see if I do end up thinking that definitely it gives me a lot more benefit than before. But for right now, it was not a huge wow response for me. As I mentioned, definitely noticeable though on the more spirited driving, harder braking. So kind of closing thoughts, what I think overall. I certainly do think this particular mod has a good possible benefit. I don't know that it would aid you in stopping power. I think for stopping power, the best thing is to certainly have a good set of rotors and pads on your car with a good compound. That's probably going to give you the best braking power. I do think that this particular mod would be most beneficial for people that track their cars. If you daily drive your car and baby your car and you aren't really hard on it, I don't know that you would feel much of a difference. As I mentioned, when I first left my driveway until I started driving more spirited, it didn't feel all that different to me. Another brake mod to consider, depending on what you're going to do, but particularly if you're going to track your car, is braided stainless steel lines. I already have the stainless steel braided lines on this. If I do decide to do more spirited driving or do track days, obviously switching to a better compounded brake. But again, I do think where most people are going to find this particular mod beneficial is going to be with you guys that are going to track your cars and definitely push your cars a bit more to the limit. I don't know that the cost of this particular mod would necessarily justify it for somebody who isn't going to be pushing their car and is definitely going to be babying their car. Speaking of the cost, that's probably one of my only cons on the on this particular Z1 Motorsports brace. It's $150, and that's not counting shipping, so it's without free shipping. I grabbed this one on sale for $130. With shipping, it actually ended up being $150. Now, I do understand, obviously, particularly with Z1 and the R&D behind their product, that they may need to just have it priced that way. I would have anticipated a brace of around this particular caliber, maybe to be a little bit more around the $100 bracket. 90 to 100 would have been probably where I would have priced this. Ease of install, again, pretty straightforward. I think most everyone can do this without having too great of difficulty. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for watching the install and the review. If you have any questions, please drop a comment below. I will be sure to respond to it. If you have any questions at all in particular about my vehicle, or any questions obviously in particular about the product that we installed and reviewed today. Again, thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.